Have you ever bought something solely because you saw a commercial for it? Okay, actually, you probably have. There's a reason why these things are everywhere. They obviously work, especially on kids. Like, do you know how many things I saw in infomercials that I wanted as a kid? A lot. But my parents very smartly didn't let me buy any of them. Strangely, that almost never works for video games for me. But I suppose that comes with the territory. A lot of ads are just like, hey, here's why you should buy this. But with video games, usually just like, hey, this game came out, buy it. I guess. When you only have 30 seconds to sell someone on a product, you can't always do that with video games. Games are built around context. It teaches you things and then you use those skills to progress. Without that context, selling a game within such a short time is harder than it looks, at least to me. When I see a game advertised and I have no knowledge of it beforehand, I usually go, neat, I don't know what this is. Unless it's a mobile ad, in which case I definitely know I don't want to play this. But Portal 2's TV spot was different. Sure, it was just a cinematic, didn't show any gameplay, but you saw the commercial and you understood what the gameplay was about, using portals. This is the only commercial that ever sold me on a game without having any prior knowledge of it. Sure, I looked up reviews and gameplay before buying it, but this was my first real exposure to Portal. I was really interested in this one. A few weeks after it came out, I bought it for my PS3 and it blew my tiny, almost 13-year-old mind. Like, holy hell did Portal 2 immediately click with me. And in hindsight, that totally makes sense, seeing as I love the action puzzle solving in Zelda. Do you see this playtime? Because there's a lot of playthroughs and that's just on PC. I probably played it on PS3 just as much. How did I not get sick of this game? Like, legit, there was like one time where I played nearly the whole game in one sitting, but then I realized it was like 1 AM. That's late for me, I swear. Also, this was like a few months after I first played the game, and at that point I already played it like at least 10 times. Then I played the first game, and it turns out that game's just as fun. It did not take long for Portal 2 to be one of my favorite games ever, and that still holds true. All these years later, and I have treasured my time spent with this game. I just love it so much. But it's been a long time since I last played the game in full. Probably at least 5 years, I don't know specifically. Now that I have an actually good video on the first Portal, I think it's finally time. Also, I'm playing the PC version, but you know, physical. But just a heads up, talking about everything I love about Portal 2 is kinda awkward to do without going into spoilers, so I don't know, play this 9-year-old game if you haven't already. Let's take a look at Portal 2 and get into why I love it so much. Alright, let's boot it up. Jesus. Why is the Valve guy turning around so terrifying? This wasn't there at launch either. They made people piss themselves after the fact. Just like the first game, you wake up from stasis, but this time in some crappy hotel room. This opening is a tutorial, and it knows it's a tutorial. Like, it starts out with telling you how to look around, then like...
You should now feel mentally reinvigorated.
What? The game later asks you to speak, which instead makes you jump, then you're like, oh, I can jump apparently. It's brilliant, and just like last time, this is a blatant tutorial section, but it's entertaining enough to where you don't mind. You go back into stasis, only to be woken up God knows how long later, and you're greeted by this dude, Wheatley. One thing I love about this game is that a lot of the time, they'll have dialogue that just goes on while the game waits for you to do what it's asking. It's just a cool detail. And not answering the door immediately almost feels canon, because it turns out you're the last test subject left and Aperture is about to explode. Cool. Oh, and I just love how expressive the character models are. All the characters are robots, so you'd think they wouldn't look so expressive without clear human features, but they pull it off beautifully here. It's really impressive and adds a lot of charm. These models are a far cry from the static model GLaDOS had at the end of the first game. Anyway, Wheatley attempts to make sure you don't have brain damage, but you probably do. And, guides your room back to the main testing course so you can get out of here. Here we go again. You are thrown into the same beginning chambers from the first game, but now everything's destroyed from being offline for so long. Normally I'd be annoyed at retreading so much ground, but here it shows you just how much time has passed since the first game, and also does the same job of teaching you how portals work. It's not totally the same at least. They put buttons in this chamber instead of just having you wait for the portals to cycle through, which I much prefer. And they even added totally new chambers to compensate. When you get the portal gun, there's even these drawings that recap what happened last time, even though not much did. And I just love all the pre-recorded messages of this announcer dude.
If cube and button-based testing caused this emergency, don't worry. The odds of this happening twice are very slim. This next test is very dangerous. To help you remain tranquil in the face of almost certain death, smooth jazz will be deployed in 3, 2, 1.
Like, they picked smooth jazz solely because it was funny to the most amount of people. If it wasn't obvious by now, this game is hilarious. The first game is pretty humorous, but Portal 2 is on a whole nother level. Like, easily the funniest game I've ever played, and it's so well written. There's a lot of funny games that rely on meta humor or just general quirkiness, but not this game. This is some genuinely genius writing that still holds up today.
Most test subjects do experience some cognitive deterioration after a few months in suspension. Now, you've been under for quite a lot longer, and it's not out of the question that you might have a very minor case of serious brain damage.
It's fantastic, and this is just from the opening chapter. But after a few tests, you and Wheatley make your way to GLaDOS' chamber, who's still offline after all this time. In your efforts to call in an escape pod, you accidentally turn her back on, and she is pissed at you. If it wasn't obvious by now, you're still a shell from the previous game. Sorry, shell. Thanks, Gabe. GLaDOS tosses Wheatley aside and is back to business as usual. Wheatley isn't dead though, not that it was a secret. This is not the same GLaDOS from the first game. After you ripped off all her personality cores, she's back to how she was originally. You know, when she flooded the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin. GLaDOS remembers Chell killing her, so she's got a bit of a grudge against her.
Well done. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. Did you know that people with guilty consciences are more easily startled by loud noises? I'm sorry. I don't know why that went off. Anyway, just an interesting science fact.
When I was younger, I thought she was overly mean and I didn't like her that much, but now that I'm older, I don't blame her. If I was murdered and brought back to life, I'd be pissed too. This could easily be annoying if that was mainly what her character was, but it really isn't. I'll get more into it later, but she actually manages to develop in a big way by the end of the game. And hell, she insults you in such creative ways it's hard not to laugh it off. You know, a much worse way to do something like this is Carmelita from Sly Thieves in Time. In that game, she was pissed at Sly for lying to her about having amnesia until it spectacularly blew up in his face. It was annoying there because that was her only character trait for like 2/3 of the game, especially since she wasn't like that in previous games. But here, GLaDOS can actually shut up about it and she's willing to put it behind her as long as you don't try and kill her again. Wow, I thought I was done talking about Sly Cooper. Please make another game. Anyway, the core gameplay is virtually identical to last time, other than the physics feeling a little different from the newer engine. Although they did add a zoom button, which makes shooting portals from a distance much easier. But the thing about this game is all the new mechanics they added, and almost none of them are repeated from last time. Sure, you still got cubes, fizzlers, and turrets, but that's mostly it. Just about everything is brand new. Lasers, launch pads, light bridges, friggin' tractor beams. Actually, now that you mention it, light bridges were briefly in Half-Life 2 Episode 1. They turned it into a puzzle mechanic like the energy pellets. That's pretty cool. Look, if you play the first game, you already know what you're getting yourself into, but this isn't nearly as short. This game can last you like 10 to 12 hours, unless you played it a bazillion times like me and finished in 4.5. My strange addiction aside, this was the main flaw of the first game. Portal 2 feels like a standalone game and not just some side project. Portal 1 was the proof of concept, and Portal 2 was that concept fully realized. Although one thing I miss about the original is the openness of the puzzles. Once you got both portals, you could solve just about everything in a lot of different ways. Not here. Most test chambers only have one solution this time, which is kind of a shame, but it also means that the game is more challenging. Granted, I did play Portal 1 after Portal 2, but even on my first playthrough, I breezed through the first game. In Portal 2, there were plenty of points where I was stumped and had to think about what to do. Even replaying it now after not touching it for a few years, there were still a few points where I had to think about what the solution was. And the solution never feels too obtuse. You still properly taught mechanics through the level design. You're given all the pieces, you just have to put them in the right place. This game is a test of your problem solving skills. God, do I wish they'd make another one, because Portal 2 can make you feel like the biggest dumbass on the planet, and then immediately make you feel like a genius when you figure out what you were missing. Very few puzzle games can do that without feeling daunting and condescending, and this is one of them. This is a true sequel despite having less open puzzles. As much as I enjoyed the openness of the first game, I actually prefer the more restrictive solutions that felt just as well designed. It makes you think, and that's just more engaging to me. The game doesn't make you feel nearly as isolated either. When you have multiple characters and a bigger story emphasis, that just comes with the territory. You generally feel isolated from a lack of dialogue and characters. Not a bad thing, just a different thing. Because the big way the Portal 2 is different from the first is how many secrets there are this time. There were a few rat dens in the first game, but there was a lot more of them here, and they still give off a similar vibe as before. There's even one where you can hear some faint babbling that you can't make out. It's super creepy, and I kinda wish these dens had more stuff like that, giving off this this ominous foreboding feeling. All the Easter eggs and secrets makes the game fun to try and find everything. Like how they just hide a Moby Dick excerpt in plain sight.
Wait, this next test does require some explanation. Let me give you the fast version. There. If you have any questions, just remember what I said in slow motion. And methodically knocking people's heads off. Then I count my time and get you see as soon as I can.
And I love how you can just take this one companion cube out of the test chamber and GLaDOS just fizzles it like, nope. All this hidden stuff makes it feel like they were having fun while making it and put stuff in just because they could. You occasionally run into Wheatley, who tells you he's still trying to bust you out of here. As well-meaning as he is, Wheatley's an idiot. He's trying his best to help you out, but he really doesn't for the most part. But he does come through eventually, leading to another escape sequence. You go through the factory port of Aperture, and it's pretty cool seeing how the turrets are made, with your puzzle-solving skills and Wheatley's hacking skills.
Done. Hacked.
You take down GLaDOS' turret production lines and neurotoxin supplies. Like, you take a defective turret and make the system only approve the defective ones. That's genius. This part where we have to use lasers to destroy the neurotoxin tubes was always really memorable to me. The first time I played, I thought I was supposed to let Wheatley hack it. I didn't immediately realize you were supposed to be doing something here. It was when I noticed the moving place and remembered the laser from right before that I figured out how to progress. After that, you get sucked through a tube and you end up right at GLaDOS with her chamber completely repaired. Conveniently, you find the door to her emergency shutdown switch and... oh. Wow, should've seen that coming. GLaDOS captures you, but completely in vain because all the turrets are defective and just explode. And with the neurotoxin supply depleted, Wheatley just pops out of a tube and you're already freed. Apparently GLaDOS is detected as super corrupt, so he ended up making Wheatley in charge of the facility instead.
No, stop, no, 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 no!
That wasn't terrifying or anything. You know what, whatever, let's just get out of here. But as they go up the escape lift, music goes from triumphant to ominous to, oh god, I've made a huge mistake. Wheatley is in charge of this place for 2 minutes and he's already gone mad with power and decides that you shouldn't leave. Just look at him. He looks like he was forced on there, like if you swapped the head on a doll with another one. It's weird and kinda creepy looking. He does not look like he should be in charge of this place. Wheatley is really menacing and villainous as soon as this happens, and to show how in control he is, he puts GLaDOS in a potato, because apparently he didn't do anything to get here and Shell did all the work, even though she kinda did. Like, he thinks all Shell did was boss him around. With what voice? She hasn't said a damn thing this whole series. She can't even say Apple, let alone give orders. If anything, Wheatley was the bossy one by telling him to plug him into stuff and turn around because he can't hack if someone's watching. You remember all those personality calls you had to pull off of GLaDOS at the end of the first game? Well, it turns out Wheatley was one of them, if it wasn't obvious by his appearance. He was made to make GLaDOS an idiot and make terrible decisions to try and make her behave, but as far as I know, he wasn't specifically one from the end of the last game. It seems like they replaced him with a morality core that prevented GLaDOS from flooding the Enrichment Center with a deadly neurotoxin. This dude's also got a massive inferiority complex and hates being called a moron, so he just punches the elevator into the shaft below you, because a moron definitely can't do that. Makes sense to me. And so, you and GLaDOS fall into the abyss below. GLaDOS explains this situation far better than I ever could.
He's not just a regular moron. He's the product of the greatest minds of a generation, working together with the express purpose of building the dumbest moron who ever lived. And you just put him in charge of the entire facility.
GLaDOS gets taken by a bird, so you have to go on ahead by yourself. After finding the biggest door created by man... oh. Well, that's disappointing. Anyway, stumble into old Aperture and listen to the pre-recorded messages of Aperture's founder, Cave Johnson. Why does that sound familiar? Wait. In the first game, C. Johnson was written on the walls of one of the rat dens as a login for something. That is some awesome continuity. Or maybe they just added it in later, I'm not sure, but it's still cool. Anyway, Cave is the best character in the series. You can't convince me otherwise.
The lab boys just informed me that I should not have mentioned the control group. They're telling me I ought to stop making these pre-recorded messages. That gave me an idea. Make more pre-recorded messages. I pay the bills here, I can talk about the control group all damn day. Science isn't about why, it's about why not. Why is so much of our science dangerous? Why not marry safe science if you love it so much? In fact, why not invent a special safety door that won't hit you on the butt on the way out because you are fired? Now you test subject, you're doing fine. Yes, you. Box, your stop. Out the front door. Parking lot. Car. Goodbye.
Everything that this man says is complete gold. I love him. His assistant Carolyn occasionally chimes in too.
Say goodbye, Carolyn.
Goodbye, Carolyn.
She is a gem.
I am amazed I didn't get this joke until recently. Honestly, Old Aperture is the best part of the game. This place has this really cool retro futurism vibe to it, with a post-apocalyptic touch with it being in ruins. The game also introduces gels around this time, which is a really cool new mechanic. Blue gel makes you bounce, red gel makes you run fast, and white gel lets you place portals on that surface. They get a ton of cool uses, and it just feels good to run fast with red and then jump off a ramp or bounce off some blue gel, or both. It's awesome. White gel goes pretty underutilized for the most part though. I get that since it just creates portal surfaces, there isn't a ton you can do with it, but it's not nearly as fun to use as the other ones. I don't know, I feel like that they could have come up with some way to use this on its own, other than just painting the floor white until you make a way to the exit. It's just boring by comparison. That does lead into the one issue I have with this part of the game. A lot of the time, you have to figure out how to progress to the next test chamber. The place is in ruins, so you can't always just ride an elevator to the next one like you can with the rest of the game. I like this as an idea. You have to think about how to get to your next destination, but most of the time, it's a very boring execution. Most of this is just finding a wall in the distance to portal to. It's much more interesting when you have to figure out how to launch yourself or something like that. Like in this beginning part where you have to use the elevator shaft as a launch point, or here when you have to fall in the right way to conserve your momentum to a place where you normally wouldn't be able to use it. It's more interesting and engaging than just find a white wall that you can just barely see. I had this issue with the challenge chambers in the first game, and I was unsurprised to still not like it here. Granted, this is just a nitpick. I'm making it sound like a much bigger deal than it really is. This is the closest thing this game has to a low point, so if I was going to be complaining about any part of the game, it's the boring in-between points in Old Aperture. This game is just that well paced. As you go further through Old Aperture, it's really interesting to see Aperture's fall from grace. The first test subjects are the peak of human fitness. Olympians, astronauts, war heroes, you name it. But as time goes on and their funding and notoriety gets lower, they resort to hiring homeless off the streets and eventually just using their own scientists. I want to feel bad for them, but like, oh my god, how do these people stay in operation for so long?
Those of you who volunteered to be injected with praying mantis DNA, I've got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is we've got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of mantis men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line. You'll know when the test starts. If you've cut yourself at all in the course of these tests, you might have noticed that your blood is pure gasoline. That's normal. We've been shooting you with an invisible laser that's supposed to turn blood into gasoline, so all that means is it's working. Alright, we're working on a little teleportation experiment. Now, this doesn't work with all skin types, so try to remember which skin is yours, and if it doesn't teleport along with you, we'll do what we can to sew you right back into it.
To think Aperture used to be less humane, what the Wait a minute, is that the Borealis dock? Whoa, that is a great touch. Almost makes you forget that they left people on a cliffhanger for 13 plus years. Wow, am I glad I have no attachment to Half-Life's story. This sounds painful.
Black Mesa can eat my bankrupt...
Eventually, you find GLaDOS getting eaten by a bird, but being a good Samaritan, you get it off her and she's willing to call it even between you. Basically, Aperture is going to explode in a few hours unless you can put GLaDOS back in charge. So, you mount her on your portal gun, make your way back to the top layer of Aperture. But along the way, GLaDOS recognizes Cave. Definitely not foreshadowing or anything. Oh, and apparently all the portal surfaces you've seen are painted with ground-up moon rocks, along with a white gel. $70 million worth of moon rocks in like 1983? How much is that nowadays? Jesus, that is a lot of digits. How much money do these people have? Enough to where Cave can be pissed about lemons, that's for sure.
I don't want your damn lemons! What am I supposed to do with these?
Yeah, take the lemons.
So, now we hear GLaDOS' origin story. Cave Johnson died from moonrock poisoning before they could put his personality into a computer, so they put his assistant Carolyn in instead. And that's it, weirdly. But since Wheatley was put in charge of Aperture, GLaDOS' tone of voice has changed. She's less robotic, and now she shows more emotion when she speaks. She's showing some actual character development. That's a really cool thing to see. And we're back at the top layer of Aperture, but we have a secret weapon. Paradoxes. Basically just say something like this sentence is false or does a set of all sets contain itself, and an omnipotent AI is done for. They can't help but think about it until they implode or something. I don't know, this is complicated. Which is exactly why Wheatley didn't even bother thinking about it. The whole Frankencube thing wasn't working out for him, so he has to go through more tests. Lovely. Especially when they're just GLaDOS' tests and not whatever the hell this is. Like, I know he's an idiot, but is that really the best you can do? Just push a button and you win? Okay. If it wasn't clear like 2 hours ago, Wheatley's gone mad with power, even renaming this place to Wheatley Laboratories. He's got these freak of nature Frankencubes that are supposed to move toward buttons, but like, don't. And this mad lad has decided to not do any crucial functions required to keep the facility from exploding, despite constant warnings. Some of the systems are literally blue screening, and he'd probably be like, oh blue, what a color, my absolute favorite, it's a much better display than what we had on him before. It's a wonderful color, that blue. Anyway man, ignore the text on screen, I'm sure it's fine. Wheatley is like one of those guys that just doesn't change the batteries in the fire alarm because it's too much work and you can just learn to live with the constant beeping. Except the fire alarm is a building that's now a ticking time bomb. He decided to put monitors of himself everywhere instead. Gotta love this dude's priorities. Speaking of which, I love how he can just destroy most of the monitors in the game just because. It's like this optional challenge in every chamber of this chapter, and Wheatley gets progressively angrier the more you destroy.
What is this, like a hobby for you now? I mean, honestly, it's, you know, it's crazy. I mean, you've been running around for hours. I'm surprised you've got the energy to smash screens willy-nilly. Honestly, I'd have a little lie down if I were you. Have a nap.
Other than not doing what he's supposed to around the facility, he's just let the place go in general. Wheatley's version of Aperture really reminds me of the Citadel from Half-Life 2. Everything looks all dark and foreboding, and it seems to go on infinitely. Again, Portal is set in Half-Life's universe, so it could have been intentional, but it's a really intriguing parallel regardless. It's much different from the small, boxed-in rooms we saw at the beginning of the game. Apparently the AI in charge of Aperture actually has this itch to test hardwired into their system. When a subject completes a test, they have this euphoric response like, yeah, that. So if they can't do tests, they just die, I guess? I don't know. I'd imagine it's like when you really have to pee, but you cannot find a bathroom to save your life. But I suppose it's more like a drug. Eventually they build up a resistance to it, and it gets unbearable, like it's not enough. Unless you're intelligent enough to push past it. Yeah, you got the idea. And in case you're wondering why GLaDOS isn't helping you solve these tests, telling them how to solve it is physically painful. Like they'd straight up die if they did it too much. Wow, GLaDOS, this is what she puts up with? I'm amazed she still wants anything to do with this place. Granted, she was literally made for this, but still. So instead of trying to push past it, he just tries to kill you, with his attempts becoming more and more obvious as time goes on.
Sorry, my fault. Bunch of fingers.
Well, he won't do it for 2 more chambers, we still have oh crap. So basically, he found 2 robots made specifically for testing and deemed you unnecessary. This is the part where he kills you.
This is the part where he kills us.
Hello, this is the part where I kill you.
This game is peak comedy. I love how you have such smartly written jokes and then just have one joke that's just so stupid. And it's the best joke in the game, without feeling out of place. This is some god tier writing. Please, Valve, make more games. Luckily, Wheatley isn't able to kill you due to some conveniently placed conversion gel. You obviously went away, but you can actually come back and he tries to convince you to jump into the pit below. It's incredible.
You really do have brain damage, don't you? I can't believe you came back.
The final escape sequence is one of the best parts of the game. You're playing a game of cat and mouse with this omnipotent idiot, and the obvious traps he sets up are great. He thinks he's so clever, but then he just get out of a tractor beam, for example. I'd imagine this is like playing video games with a younger sibling that has no idea what they're doing. But we have a boss fight against him. Credit where credit is due, Wheatley actually tries to not make the same mistakes GLaDOS made when you fought her, but he instead makes entirely different mistakes, like leaving a breakable tube of white gel so they can actually redirect his bombs back at him. Contrary to last time, you have to put cores onto Wheatley in order to enable another core transfer. It's still chaotic like in the last game, but I don't know, there's just something about this one I'm not that into. Maybe it's because the solutions are a little more obvious? Well, at least the personality cores are entertaining as ever.
Space, wanna go to space. Orbit, in my spacesuit. The first commercial airline flight took to the air in 1914. Everyone involved screamed the entire way.
God, I love the incorrect facts one. It seems like it would be some satire account on Twitter, and it wouldn't be a big budget game from this time without Nolan North, and here he is.
Here, stand behind me. Yeah, just like that.
But with all the cores on, all you gotta do now is press the stalemate button, and Wheatley booby-trapped it, because of course he did. Wait. No. Yeah. Remember how Convergent Shell is made out of ground up moon rocks? Well, now you literally shoot a portal at the moon and Wheatley gets sucked out, never to be seen again. And I love how the Space Core just willingly chooses to yeet himself into space mid-cutscene.
Nobody's going to space, mate!
Shell gets knocked unconscious, and afterwards the co-op bots are like, yo, what's up? Before GLaDOS talks to you one last time. GLaDOS realizes that Shell isn't an enemy at all, and in fact, her best friend. Which is actually kinda sad. And this whole ordeal showed her where Carolyn lives in her brain. She deletes her, and her voice goes back to being robotic like it was at the beginning of the game. Killing you is hard, so it's easier to just let you go. And that's it. Shell actually gets to leave. Oh, son of a bitch. Wait, why are the turrets singing? And why does it sound so beautiful? After you get off the escape elevator, you're in the middle of some random field and they give you back the companion cube you burned up, and the game ends. They have another song for the credits, and it somehow manages to be better than Still Alive. How?
I used to want you dead, but now I only want you gone.
Afterwards, there's a post-credit scene where Wheatley apparently regrets his decisions. I mean, good for him, but like, dude, this ending is perfect. Everything is resolved in such a concise and well-done manner that you were totally and undeniably satisfied with how these events turned out. I don't know what it is, but this ending, all these years later, still made me tear up. It might just be from pure happiness or satisfaction or nostalgia or something else, but watching how the series ends after being so attached to it just makes me cry. I'm not one to be very emotional, so when even I'm tearing up, you know you've done an amazing job. The story in general was just really well done. The first game didn't have much of a story, just a twist and an ending really. But here there's multiple characters that are all likable for different reasons, and GLaDOS even develops and grows a conscience. Like, really, GLaDOS went from this one-note comedic villain to someone you legitimately care about by the end. She was practically tortured by the scientists at Aperture. I don't blame her for killing everyone in it. She isn't just some soulless killing machine, they drove her to do it. Sure, it wasn't a good thing, but she just wants a nice, quiet life where no one hurts her. What's wrong with that? Despite being a robot, she feels a lot more human than a ton of other characters out there. And she can make you laugh too. Hell, all these funny moments just make the serious moments more memorable because of their contrast. Portal 2 is a funny game, but it still manages to be a serious, intense narrative when it needs to be. Almost everything feels foreshadowed too. Like there's this sad, defective turret during the first escape, but if you pick it up and let it talks about how the answer lies below and to remember Carolyn. Before the co-op bots are revealed to have been made, you can briefly see Peabody, or Orange, complete one test chamber while Wheatley is in charge. One rat den has singing turrets as well. Oh, and the most subtle foreshadowing I've ever seen in media is this chamber. Among the garbage hurtling towards you is a radio playing the same instrumental version of Still Alive from the first game. If you bring it to the rat den in the corner of the chamber, it gives off another SSTV signal that when decoded, gives you a picture of a cube on the moon. And this is within the first hour of the game. All these little hidden secrets makes it feel like the story was really well thought out, and it is cool as hell to find on a subsequent playthrough. It just feels really good to have a satisfying story in the kind of game you don't really expect to have one. But the single player is only half the game, because they thought it would be a cool idea to add in a co-op campaign. Having two sets of portals changes absolutely everything about this game, and they take full advantage of it too. There is very rarely a point where cooperation isn't required, and you can be total dicks to each other too. Like there's a few ports where one person guides the other player through a short maze to get a cube or something, and you can just kill them instead. Sure, it means people can be dicks to you when playing with random partners, but that's just fun when you're playing with a friend, and they made playing co-op online as easy as possible. In testing, they noticed people would often get up and point at where their partners should be shooting a portal. You can't do that online, so they added a ping tool that highlights the point of interest. There's a few different signs that differentiate different actions from when you don't have voice chat too. And instead of going 3, 2, 1, go, there's a timer that you can use. And like, this is one of few games I can think of that even has split screen on PC. Why is this not common? Even Halo on PC doesn't have split screen. It could be way better than on consoles too. Why not give every player their own screen when you have multiple monitors hooked up? That sounds dope. And just so that split screen doesn't have an inherent advantage to online play, they let you see your partner's view with the press of a button. My god, did they think of everything. This stuff really makes it more fun to play, especially when you got two sets of portals and need to combine mechanics together. So having every tool to make communication as easy as possible is a great thing to see. And man, do these puzzles get mind-bending when you don't know what to expect. Like there's one part where you need to launch one player to catch a reflection cube, but the other player still needs to change the portals below the one with the cube so they can fall infinitely to kill the turrets. It sounds complicated, but figuring it out and executing it feels so good. And it seriously helps when you just play the single player and remember all the mechanics. The last time I played co-op was 3 years ago with my friend Space King, and we really struggled with it near the end. But in our most recent playthrough for this review, we had a much easier time solving everything. Keep in mind that unlike the single player, I only played co-op like 3 or 4 times before this video. I forgot most of the puzzles, but I was surprised about how relatively quickly we breezed through it this time, especially when Space switched to a different controller that didn't decide to freak out on us. We did it. I did it. There was only one part that we got really stuck on, and all we had to do was just have one person fling themselves. This was a mechanic that was used a lot in the first game, but was weirdly unused in the second game. It's something that you can still do in Portal 2, but it was never required. I don't know, maybe they thought it was too skill-based, not thought-based. Even in this one instance, you don't need to do it quickly, you just need to reuse a portal. Still, 2 heads are better than 1, so even if the puzzles in co-op are harder, you have 2 people working on the same problem, and that makes the solution much easier to figure out. Hell, what partner you have can really make a difference in how the experience goes. Maybe both players are bad at puzzle solving and have a super slow time, but maybe one of them is insanely good, or just played the game before and knows the solutions, and they guide the less experienced player very easily. Portal is all about problem solving, so working with different kinds of people leads to a different experience. It's not something about the co-op campaign that was intentional, but more of a happy accident. It's fun playing this mode with different people because of it, but not knowing the solutions was really refreshing. When you've played these games many times as I have, you remember how to solve the puzzles even when it's been years since your last playthrough. I forgot what it's like to solve these puzzles, and it's some of the most I've been actively engaged in a game in a long time. When I play basically any game, I tend to think about something in the back of my head every now and then. You know, just turn my brain off and go on autopilot for a little bit, but not this time. My focus was solely on the game other than an occasional conversation me and Space had. I miss not knowing the solutions. I love figuring all this stuff out. It just makes me long for another game that I'm not sure if we'll even get. And that experience is exciting and depressing at the same time. I loved playing through the co-op campaign again because there was a good mix between I remember this and oh god, what? Yeah, there was a mountain of mods for these games, but they're not the same. They're mods, so they lack that inherent polish that comes with a Valve game. God, I miss this series. I wasn't sure if I was gonna replay the co-op campaign for this review, but Space Game was a huge help in replaying it with me. It was fun, man. Thanks for letting me replay a big part of one of my favorite games. Check out his Twitch if you get the chance. Space is a big reason why I started this channel in the first place, and he's a pretty entertaining guy to listen to. He's been playing Persona 3 on it recently. Space apparently plans on making reviews on his YouTube channel, so if you're watching it in the future, he might have one by then, I don't know. Oh yeah, the co-op mode actually has its own story. Basically, human testing has been phased out, so GLaDOS has the 2 co-op bots do tests instead. But I actually really like how she tries to turn the both of you against each other and try to make a friendly rivalry to see who can do better.
Excellent. Although great science is always the result of collaboration, keep in mind that, like Albert Einstein and his cousin Terry, history will only remember one of you.
History will only remember one of us. Okay.
God, it would be so great if you actually had a cousin named Terry. This game actually keeps track of your science collaboration points, and yeah. GLaDOS occasionally has to go down to Old Aperture for something, but it's eventually revealed that she found a bunch of human test subjects in cryo storage down there, and you find the vault full of them. There's not much here, really, and that makes sense. It's hard to focus on a story where my dumbass friends are involved.
Oh boy, it's come!
Oh boy. An obvious joke. But they did add a free co-op expansion about 6 months after release. This is where the game gets really mind-bending, but it's a fun time regardless. Anyway, it's been 10,000 years since the co-op bots were last assembled, and now testing is some high form of art appreciation. Or something. Whatever. But as you go further through, the facility gets worse and worse until apparently it hasn't been 10,000 years. It's been a week, and all the humans in storage died already. It's all the work of someone in the bowels of the facility. Well, who just is this asshole? A bird. A goddamn bird. Yeah, GLaDOS has been afraid of birds ever since she got partially eaten by one, and it's hilarious. I just love the idea that this hyper-intelligent, omnipotent AI is afraid of birds of all things. But the bird leaves behind some eggs, and GLaDOS decides to keep them and raise a bird army. Yep, that's it. Portal's story ends on GLaDOS becoming a crazy bird lady. Fine by me. The extras are the same as before. Time trials for all the test chambers, developer commentary, all that good stuff. There's no challenge chambers this time, but this game can last you like 20 hours on your first playthrough with co-op, so that's totally fine. The PC version also has a level editor alongside the usual modding tools. I made some alright test chambers when I was like 14 or 15. Honestly, I don't know why I made this one. Alongside this level builder is nearly 30 minutes of new Cave Johnson dialogue from alternate universes. Basically, Cave is trying to con the multiverse out of test chambers to save money or something. They did not have to do this, but it is glorious.
Welcome, gentlemen, to Aperture Rituals. Astronauts, war heroes, Olympians, you're here because of an ancient mating ritual etched in a monolith by the elder monks to forestall the end of days. So, who is ready to make love to a giant bird? Attention test prisoners attempting to escape through the air ducts. I don't know what nonsense you learned on TV, but in real life, air ducts just go to the air conditioning unit. It's also pretty dusty, so if you've got asthma, chances are you're going to die up there. And we'll be smelling it for weeks because, again, the air ducts aren't a secret escape hatch. They're how we ventilate the facility. Cave Johnson, new owner and CEO of Black Mesa. That's right, you've been bought. First order of business, we're renaming you under the Aperture brand. I'm leaning towards Blapature Mesa. Marketing boys think something else. So, Blapature it is. Next, they tell me you people are conducting some anomalous materials research that could result in a resonance cascade. So, I'm shutting that down before you idiots end the world. A resonance cascade. You're supposed to be scientists. Use some common sense.
There was also an interactive teaser for the movie Super 8. Like, why? Why is this here? How much money did they pay Valve for this? There's no harm in this being here. It's basically just a walking simulator that lasts like 5 minutes and also doesn't explain what the movie is even about. But it's one of those things that makes you question how it exists in the first place. Like, a Daytona racing car is a fighting game character. How the hell did that happen? Look, Portal 2 is one of my favorite games ever. It's not quite top 5, but if the 6 or 7 games that I like more weren't so amazing, it definitely would be. Like, seriously, what the hell even was this game? It practically came out of nowhere to me and totally blew me away with its writing, level design, and gameplay in general. I first played it on PS3, and that version had full Steam integration and let you play with PC players. Crossplay is commonplace nowadays, but in 2011, that was borderline blasphemous. If I can play with PC players, why can't I play with Xbox players? And the PS3 version even came with a code to download the PC version off Steam. For free. Dude, my computer can play a lot of the games available on my PS3. Whoa, what? Keep in mind that my only experience with PC games at the time was Space Cadet Pinball, Solitaire, and Backyard Soccer. I didn't think people played real games on these things. I was so out of the loop on PC games at the time that I was not only blown away that you can change every key binding, but you also use WASD to move? That's stupid. Why not use the arrow keys? Oh, that's why. WASD feels much better. I picked up the first game a few months later when I was curious about other Valve games, and what do you know, these ones are all pretty damn good too. I basically lived in Team Fortress 2 for one summer. Oh, and you can even modify PC games you're liking. Like, yeah, let's just kill Teletubbies in Left 4 Dead 2 instead of zombies. At what point does this stop being a zombie game? Hell, modding made me more competent with PC usage in general. I've always been really into computers, but you don't know how much you don't know until you start to go out of your comfort zone. I take it back, my computer decided to have a faulty RAM stick while editing this video, and it took me a whole day to figure out what was wrong and fix it. I hate computers. This random, generous coupon for Portal 2 on PC was my gateway to PC gaming, and I may not be a PC fanboy or anything, but there was a lot of games I like playing on PC more. I just like how much more control I have with a mouse over an analog stick in an FPS. And to think that I was enjoying PC games that much at like 15 frames per second. I had a garbage computer at the time, but that HP Pavilion from like 2010 was apparently good enough for teenage me. I got more sensitive to frame rates as I got older, so I kinda grew out of it in high school, but I built a PC last year and boy did I miss it. Playing Portal 2 at 60 FPS still feels weird. Like, my god, this game is 9 years old and it still looks this good. That's incredible. And you could probably run it on the potato GLaDOS was put into. That's even more impressive. The developer commentary made me more interested in game design as well. I even made a Portal level in Little Big Planet 2 that used that game's mechanics for puzzles instead of portals. I even got different gels to work and put in the scrapped adhesive gel because it fit a platformer much better, and one DLC pack basically did the work for me. Replaying it, it's honestly not half bad. Not amazing, but not awful either. It's kinda cool to look back on. And if I'm talking about Portal inspiring me to make stuff, you've been watching it. I wanted to start making Let's Plays of the games I love and wanted Portal to be the first, and then quickly realized I'm bad at improvising, watched one too many Some Call Me Johnny and completionist videos, and switched to writing reviews instead, and I'm somehow still doing it 3 years later. Hearing that developer commentary made me want to learn more about the game in general. It's really cool how the game started out not even using portals. They figured they would give each new entry a new main mechanic, so they had something called F-stop instead. Playtesters liked it, but they were confused why the sequel to Portal didn't have a portal gun, so they decided to make F-stop something else entirely. And then they never did because they couldn't come up with many ways to make it work well, but hey, it's still pretty cool. Oh, and there was a student project called Tag the Power of Paint that was the main inspiration for the gels. That's damn cool. They even hired the team behind it to work on Portal 2.
This was my experience with Portal 2. Even when I was done playing it, I wanted to learn more about it. Everything in this series is just so interesting to me. From the design of it all to the characters and world, I love Portal. And it did not take long to remember why I love these games so much. It would honestly be one of my favorite series if there were more than 2 games.
And from the moment you start playing, it doesn't take long for either game to set up and get going. The lack of filler from the first game makes sense given its short length, but Portal 2's lack of filler is even more impressive given how much longer it is. Hell, they even slapped on an extra co-op campaign just to make sure you got your money's worth at launch. It may have launched for $60, but you can easily get Portal 2 for 99 cents if you wait for a sale. That should be illegal. This game is worth way more than 99 cents. It's a shame we never got another proper game after this, because there was a gold mine of what you can do with portals. But at the same time, I'm actually glad they ended it here. It's much better to have a proper conclusion than just end on a cliffhanger for 13 years. The story feels finished, so I'm kinda okay with that. Portal 2 was a special game. After all these years, it's still just as good as it always was. Especially if you don't remember many of the solutions. Again, I miss that feeling, but maybe I'll feel that in a different way soon, because there's still another Portal game in the form of a Bridge Constructor spin-off. Okay then. This has been Flame Guy, and despite all this, Portal 2 isn't even my favorite Valve game. Please make more games. Take care, and I'll see you all next mission.